What is cheese? Well, this is cheese. This is also cheese. This is the best cheese. This is cheese for lazy people. This isn't cheese, not yet at least. We'll come back to it later. This is cheese. This is lots of different cheeses. And this still isn't cheese. Could you spot the odd one out? Correct, this isn't cheese, this is a pressure build. Now, I know cheese is a very loose term, and everybody has their own definition for it, but I believe there is a definite distinction between cheese and pressure builds, and I see a lot of people just assuming they're the same thing. There's a big definition for cheese on Urban Dictionary, and while I agree with some of it, it once again fails to differentiate between cheese and early pressure. The bit I agree with is where it says, a cheese strategy will often leave the cheeser at a significant disadvantage should the cheese fail. I think there is a much more simple way to define a cheese and a pressure build, and a better way to differentiate between them both. A cheese is where you use an unusual build where the primary objective is to straight up kill your opponent. And this usually relies on them not scouting the build or simply not knowing how to react properly. With cheese, transitioning into a macro build or simply changing your strategy is a secondary objective and not a very appealing one. With a pressure build, the primary objective is to use aggression or an unusual build to gain an advantage and then transition into a macro game. With a pressure build, killing your opponent with the original build is only a secondary objective. If there's an opportunity, you go for it, but you're not expecting there to be. The idea is that even if they scout it and know how to handle it, you use your aggression to take an economic advantage, forcing your opponent onto the back foot where they either have to all in you or play catch up for the rest of the game. Bear in mind that a pressure build can be cheesy without being cheese, the same way cheese puffs are cheesy, but you wouldn't put them on your pasta. The things I do for Starcraft. No, not good. And there you have it. Scientific proof that a build can be cheesy without being cheese. So why am I going through such lengths to show this distinction between cheese and pressure builds? Well, firstly, I do think it's important we know the distinction. But secondly, and more importantly, I feel like there's a lot of players out there who feel like I used to feel, in that the only way to play Starcraft and the only way to really improve at Starcraft is to do straight, normal macro builds. Now, while they're half right, I think pressure builds are the best way to improve at Starcraft. The problem with doing safe macro builds is you never really push yourself out of your comfort zone. You only do as much multitasking and as much harassment as you can manage, which means you never get to go that step further and improve. Now with pressure builds, you have to be always attacking whilst perfectly macroing up behind it. It's difficult and you fail it a lot, but if you're at a plateau at the moment and you're struggling to improve, try pressure builds. Try a build where you have to be constantly attacking whilst constantly macroing behind it. At first you'll fail and you'll lose to people who are better at defending against it, but as you practice this build you will improve really quickly. And eventually you'll be better at executing the build than your opponents are at defending it. When that happens, you'll go up a level, you'll rank up, you'll gain a new rank, and you'll start playing against more difficult opponents. Now don't get me wrong, I really like cheese every now and again. I think it's really important to have a few cheese builds that you can pull out when you need to. You can even get to a very high level doing just cheese. There's a lot of players who do it. There's several players in Grandmaster who do just cheese over and over again. The problem is, once you've played against these people, you know exactly what they're going to do every time and you can be defensive. Now this is where Haz comes in. Haz is a player who switches between cheese and pressure builds, and that's what makes him so dangerous. You never know if his cheese is actually a cheese, or if he's just going to be using it to get ahead economically. The thing is, if you spend all of your time doing cheese and pressure builds, and you don't actually practice any late game macro or decision making, you could end up throwing games like this.
Go. Is he just gonna? Does he even have high ground vision? He doesn't have high ground vision, Todd.
There's a bunch of Widowmen. Oh!
What is this? He's blinking on top of it!
Oh, this is bad. Maru is very close by. He's gonna come in back with all the bio.
Todd.
Everything is gonna die.
Todd. What just happened?
I think Maru just won the game.
What?
Win or lose, though, it's always fun to watch players like Haz, and that's why I like Cheese. It's good to watch. It might be annoying to lose against it over and over again, but when you see players do it well, it's really entertaining. But what is your definition for cheese? And what is your favourite cheese? Let me know. So, I purchased all of this cheese just to make this video with. Now, cheese is quite expensive, and I don't really want it to go to waste. I'm not too sure what to do with it. I'm gonna need some crackers. Good cheese.